You make $54,000 a year. Tonight, you made $500 in 4 seconds. You finish the shift and you drive home, and you sit in the apartment with $500 in your jacket pocket, and absolutely nothing happens. No call, no knock, no consequence. Nothing but the silence of a Tuesday night and the specific weight of knowing exactly what you just did. For seconds. That's how long you sat with it before the hand went into the pocket. Level 1. The look away. You've been a patrol officer for 3 years, night shift, District 7, and by now you know the streets the way you know your own apartment. Not because you like them, but because you've walked them often enough that the knowledge is just there, automatic, the way your body knows the distance from the bed to the bathroom in the dark. You know which cars belong on which blocks, and which ones are passing through. You know which faces have been here for years, and which ones are new, and what new usually means. You know Darnell the way you know a lot of people in the district. Not his story, not his last name, just his face and his car, and the general understanding that you wave at him, and he waves back, and that's the full extent of it. The salary is $54,000, and by the time the union dues and the health insurance come out, what actually lands in your account is something smaller, and the rent is $1,400, and the car is $380, and the rest disappears into the ordinary cost of living in a city that costs more than you earn to live in. You are not broke. You are the kind of tight that feels permanent, the kind where you skip lunch twice a week and tell yourself you weren't that hungry anyway. Tuesday night. Traffic stop. Darnell rolls a junction, not running it, just not quite stopping, and you pull him over because it's a legitimate violation and because it's District 7 at night, and that's the job. He's calm at the window. The way people are calm when they know you and you know them. And there's something under the seat that you both notice without either of you saying anything about it. A small bag that isn't hiding itself very hard. Enough for a misdemeanor possession charge and everything that goes with it. He reaches into his jacket slowly, the way people reach when they want you to see where their hands are going. And he pulls out a folded stack and holds it out across the center console without looking at you directly. Just the money and the space between you and the understanding of what comes next in either direction. $500. Almost a week's take-home. You stand at that window for 4 seconds, badge on your chest, the junction empty behind you, nobody on the street, the radio quiet, and in those 4 seconds you understand something about yourself that you will spend a long time not thinking about directly. You take the money. You tell him to drive safe. He drives away and you walk back to the patrol car and sit in it for 11 minutes before you put it in gear, and in those 11 minutes you radio in a warning issued. No arrest, no paperwork, and you sit with the weight of $500 in your jacket and the specific silence of having done something you cannot undo and the specific lightness of knowing what that $500 fixes when you get home. 3 weeks later, a different plain dark civilian car pulls alongside you at the end of a shift. Different driver, someone you've never seen. But he says your name, and he knows your shift pattern, and he quotes a figure higher than Darnell's. And you understand immediately that Darnell gave someone your name, which means you are no longer the person who made a private decision on a quiet Tuesday. You are the person Darnell told someone about, which is a different thing entirely. You sit with that for 2 seconds. By the end of month 3, you've waved through 4 cars and put $2,400 into your account and driven past the junction where it started on every single shift since then, because the junction is on your patrol route and District 7 doesn't get smaller just because you'd prefer it to. You carry both things at once now, the badge on your chest and the account balance that doesn't match it, and the carrying gets easier the longer you do it, which is the part you don't examine too closely. The badge was there the whole time. It was there when you took the money. It was there when you waved him through. It's there now. That's when it stopped being nothing. Level 2. The tip-off. Month 4. A man named Webb finds you off shift on a Tuesday evening, not in uniform. Just you in your jacket on a street you know well. And he introduces himself the way people introduce themselves when they've already done their research, which is to say he knows your name before you give it. He knows which nights you work before you say anything. And he knows what you've been doing for the past 4 months in a way that makes the past 4 months feel much less private than they were. He's calm. He's specific. He talks the way someone talks when they've had this conversation before and it went well for them, which means no threats, no pressure, just a clear offer laid out like a business proposition, which in a way it is. He runs distribution across 3 blocks of District 7. Your district, your shift, blocks you know the way you know everything else about this neighborhood. He doesn't need you to do anything active. He needs information, raid dates and times, patrol rerouting on specific nights. And if a CI develops inside his network, he needs to know who it is before it becomes a problem. He offers $1,200 a week. You do the calculation while he's still talking, which tells you something about where you are now versus where you were 4 months ago. $1,200 a week is $62,400 a year, which is more than your salary, and the gap between what you earn and what this city costs to live in has been running in the background of every shift you've worked for 3 years, and $1,200 a week closes it entirely, and then some. You say you're listening. He takes that as a yes, which it is. The first tip is a narcotics raid, Thursday night, 2 blocks from Webb's main point, scheduled as part of a regular operations push you hear about in passing at a precinct briefing. You take the date and the time home with you, type them into the burner Webb gave you that evening, and put the burner back in the shoebox on the shelf at the back of the closet. Thursday comes, and the unit hits an empty building and files it as inconclusive and moves on. Webb sends one word, good. The $1,200 lands in the account 2 days later, like it was always going to. Over the next 4 months, you tip off 3 more operations and reroute patrol twice on nights Webb needs specific streets quiet. A false call to pull the units a few blocks east, standard redirection. No one questions it, because you're the one who knows the district. 12 texts in total. Dates, times, descriptions. The shoebox comes off the shelf and goes back 12 times. $1,200 arrives 12 times. Month 6. Webb tells you there's a CI developing inside his network. Early stage, someone getting nervous, starting to talk to the wrong people. He needs a physical description and a general location in the network. You run 3 years of district faces through your head, and you come up with one that fits. And you give it to Webb on a street corner in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon, and he nods, and you both go in different directions. You never find out what happened to that person. You choose not to ask, which is not the same thing as not knowing there's an answer. By month 8, the argument you carry on every shift has expanded to include all of it. The raids, the rerouting, the 12 texts, the description you gave on a Tuesday afternoon. And the argument is that you haven't touched anyone, that you move information and information isn't the thing itself, that whatever happens downstream of you happens in a world you're not present in. You tell yourself this on patrol, driving past the blocks Webb's operation runs on, and the blocks look the same as every other block, and the argument sounds reasonable at midnight the way arguments like this always do. $62,400 on top of the salary. The shoebox on the back shelf of the closet. 12 texts. The person you described to Webb on a Tuesday afternoon. You still don't know what happened to them. Level 3. The plant. Month 9. Webb comes to you on a Thursday night with a problem that isn't a question. He's already decided the shape of the solution before he tells you what the problem is, and the way he tells you makes this clear. His rival, a man named Marcus, has been moving into 2 of his routes for the past 6 weeks, and Webb doesn't want Marcus gone. He wants Marcus arrested in a way that lands 8 months minimum, long enough to make the routes unprofitable for whoever picks them up while he's inside. He says $12,000, and then he waits, and the waiting is the whole offer, the number sitting in the air between you on that street while you decide what you're deciding. You drive home that night without saying yes or no, and the $12,000 sits in the car with you the whole way, and you sit with it on the couch for a while after that before you go to bed. Saturday night. Broken tail light on a car you've seen in the district before. A real violation, legitimate stop, the kind you could write up in your sleep. Marcus is calm at the wheel, the particular calm of someone who has been through a stop before and knows how the next 10 minutes tend to go. And you tell him to step out and stand at the front of the vehicle, and he does, because that's what you do when a patrol officer asks you to step out. The sealed bag is already in the inside pocket of your jacket. 90 seconds is what it takes. Your hand at the driver's door frame, the bag placed under the seat, your hand back at your side. You step back. You write up the stop. Marcus is arrested at the scene. He tells his lawyer the bag isn't his. The lawyer hears it and files it and can't do enough with it yet, because Marcus has 2 prior possession convictions, and 2 priors are weight on the wrong side of that argument regardless of what the argument actually is. 7 months. That's what the judge gives him, which Marcus's lawyer argues against, and the judge gives him anyway because of the priors, which is exactly what Webb told you would happen. You're on shift when the sentence comes down, and you change out of the uniform at the locker, drive home, and find yourself at the kitchen table with $9,000 in a separate account you opened 3 days after the stop and $3,000 already spent on things you would have bought eventually. The account has a number in it you couldn't explain if anyone ever asked. You tell yourself nobody is going to ask because there's no reason for anyone to look at a separate account that isn't connected to anything, and the argument for that is solid, and you've been good at carrying solid arguments. So you let it settle, and you turn off the light. 3 weeks later, you're on patrol, and you drive past the block where Marcus's car was parked on the Saturday night, and there's a red light at the junction where the stop happened, and you sit at it. The spot where the car was is empty. The stop report is filed. The sentence is handed down. Marcus is inside. The $12,000 is in an account and a jacket and a set of receipts, and you have been carrying 2 facts since that Saturday. The priors, and the fact that on this particular occasion the bag under the seat was not his. And sitting at this red light for the first time, you cannot arrange those 2 facts in the order that makes the first one do the work you've been giving it to do. You've tried it every way. The first fact is true. The second fact is also true. The second one is the one that matters, and you've known that since the 90 seconds. The light goes green. You drive through it, and the shift continues for 3 more hours, and you make 2 other stops and write 2 reports, and neither of them is the stop, and you go home when the shift ends. The badge goes on the shelf. You leave it there. You've been putting it on the chest of the uniform for 4 years and leaving it on the shelf for 1 night. And this is the first night where you don't pick it back up on the way to bed. Level 4. Internal Affairs. Month 14. One of Webb's crew gets picked up on something unrelated, a possession charge, separate from the arrangement, and under pressure in the back of an interview room, gives up a badge number. Not yours, adjacent to yours, which amounts to the same thing, because the detective who takes the information doesn't stop at the badge number she's given. She keeps going, and that means pulling every badge number in the surrounding cluster, and yours is in the cluster. Her name is Sandra Chun. Internal Affairs. You sat next to her at the academy for 6 months, 2 rows from the front, and she was the best in the class, and you knew it then the way you know things about people when you're sitting next to them for 6 months. She doesn't call you. She doesn't send word through anyone. She doesn't tip you off, which is the thing you would have done if your positions were reversed, and you know she knows that, which is why she doesn't. She opens a file and builds. 3 things go into it. The first is body camera footage from a patrol car that was 2 vehicles behind yours during the Marcus stop, 11 seconds of your hand at the car door, 11 seconds longer than any standard document check has ever taken. 11 seconds isn't evidence. It's a question, and Chun knows how to turn a question into something that functions like evidence if she has enough room to work around it. The second is the burner. 12 uses across 4 months, traced through 2 dead ends to a prepaid card purchased at a convenience store on the east side that had a working camera mounted above the register. Chun requests the footage. The store has it. She watches it. The third is Marcus's appeal. His lawyer filed a motion 2 months after the sentence citing procedural irregularities in the stop report. Chun pulls the full file the same week the motion lands. Marcus gets out after 6 months. No trace DNA on the bag. The 11-second clip entered as supporting evidence in the appeal, together enough for the judge to find reasonable doubt on the original conviction. You're already at the precinct when it happens, midway through a shift, and you find out when a colleague mentions it at the start of a shift break, offhand. Webb's burner goes silent 14 days before Chun reaches out. 3 messages across those 2 weeks. Nothing back. 14 months of arrangement, 12 texts, $12,000, 2 years of routes protected. None of it produces a single reply once the pressure starts moving in your direction. That's how that works. Chun contacts you through official channels. A formal written request for a voluntary conversation before the investigation enters its next phase. You know what voluntary means when it comes through official channels from Internal Affairs. It means this is your last chance to be the person who cooperated rather than the person who didn't. You write the resignation letter the next morning before the shift starts. 1 page. The pension forfeiture clause is in the standard misconduct section, and it applies in full. No criminal charges are filed. The burner is too clean. The 11 seconds aren't enough. There are too many dead ends between the money and your name for a prosecution to hold. Administrative finding of misconduct. That's what you walk away with. Or rather, that's what walks you out. The badge sits on the desk for 2 months. You look at it most mornings without picking it up, the way you look at something you haven't decided what to do with yet. Then it goes in the drawer. Then one morning, no specific morning, just a morning, you take it out of the drawer and you throw it away. Not because you're angry at it, because keeping it meant something and you've been trying to work out what that something was and you can't, and you're tired of the looking. 6 weeks later, you turn a corner in a neighborhood that has nothing to do with any of this and Marcus is walking toward you on the pavement. He looks at you. He was in the car on the Saturday night, stepping out the way you told him to, facing the front of the car, and he registered your face at the door during those 90 seconds, and he has always known. You keep walking. He keeps walking. Neither of you says anything. That's the version of this you get. That's all of it.